Anyone know what that is? That's music to my ears. That's another sale on Shopify, the all-in-one commerce platform to start, run, and grow your business. Shopify makes it simple to sell to anyone from anywhere. Whether you're selling shirts or sandals, start selling with Shopify and join the platform simplifying commerce for millions of businesses worldwide. With Shopify, you'll customize your online store to your brand, discover new customers, and build relationships that will keep them coming back. Shopify covers all the sales channels to successfully grow your business, from an in-person POS system to an all-in-one e-commerce platform, even across social media platforms like TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram. And thanks to 24/7 support and free on-demand business courses, Shopify is here to help you succeed every step of the way. It's how every minute new sellers around the world make their first sale with Shopify. And you can do it too. I love how Shopify makes it simple for anyone to sell their products anywhere. Whether they're ebooks or earrings, Shopify simplifies starting and running your own successful business. When you're ready to take your idea to the world, do it with Shopify, the commerce platform powering millions of businesses down the street and around the globe. Now it's your turn to try Shopify for free and start selling anywhere. So sign up for a free trial at shopify.com/C-Suite, all lowercase on C-Suite. Go to shopify.com/C-Suite, all lowercase on C-Suite to start selling online today. Shopify.com/C-Suite.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Authentic Achievements, where I'm delighted to be joined by my good friend, Joey Vitale. Joey is an internationally renowned speaker, award-winning attorney, and business growth consultant. He's spoken to tens of thousands of people across the world, and Joey has worked with influential brands like Cultivate Advisors, Honeybook, Maximum Lawyer, and the Futur. As a trusted business growth consultant, Joey helps mission-driven, service-based business owners who want to achieve exponential growth and transform into recognized thought leaders so that they can make a bigger impact on the world. His forthcoming book is entitled The Business Growth Advantage: How to Run Your Business in 1 Hour a Week, Crack the Social Media Code, and Make Limitless Income and Impact. And it's an absolute joy to have you with me, Joey. Thank you so much for giving us your time and your experience.
Of course, I am so excited and honored to be here. It's always such a joy to spend time with you, Kim Adele. I'm so looking forward to this conversation.
Oh, bless. Me too. And you always got so much actionable insight that I know not only am I going to learn loads, but so are the audience, which is amazing. So can we start with a bit of your journey so far, please?
Sure. So let's see where to start. For anybody who is not an attorney in the audience, which is probably a large chunk to say the least, let me just cast aside any concerns, because I know when people talk to attorneys, we can be a tough group of people to talk to. So just to make me sound a little bit more relatable, I went from kindergarten to law school without any breaks in between. Really thinking, law school would just be a smart choice after undergrad here in the United States, because I didn't really know what else I was going to do after I graduated college. So just staying in school sounded like a good idea, and going to law school seemed like a safe, smart next choice. While I was in law school, having different types of clinic experience, working with different law firms, I was able to find a really great job working for just a really well-known, well-reputable law firm in the St. Louis area where I lived at the time. And what they did was courtroom defense litigation. I learned through 2 years of working with them after I graduated that if I couldn't become a strong courtroom attorney with great people at that firm, I probably wouldn't like courtroom work anywhere else. And I spent those 2 years at first really trying to work on what I started to perceive as weaknesses in myself. because it was hard and stressful for me to prepare to go to the courtroom. The idea of working with an opposing party was stressful and anxiety-inducing for me. And eventually I realized, number one, that I'm not suited for the courtroom. And number two, that there were still other ways for me to be an attorney that didn't require me to step into the courtroom at all, and hopefully to help my clients avoid the courtroom themselves. And so, long story short, on that side of things, I decided to go out on my own, start my own law firm, which is now Indie Law, and we focus on just trademarks and brand protection. After my first year of being a business owner, like so many other business owners, I had this big goal of getting $100,000 in revenue for that first year. And the good news is, after a lot of hard work that first year, we were able to hit that number. The bad news is it was really stressful getting there. And I had a pretty big panic attack after chasing that goal for a whole year. Unfortunately, that panic attack turned into a series of panic attacks, and I was in the hospital for a few weeks. I say all of that because I know that Kim Adele's background and her passion aligns with where I'm going, which is that I realized that I had certain health conditions that I needed to be mindful of moving forward. And the doctors eventually realized that I'm basically allergic to most anti-anxiety medications. So they were like, Joey, if you have panic attacks again, we're limited in what we can do to treat you. So you really have to do everything that you can to create a stress-free law firm, which sounds like an impossibility, right? Right? No pressure. Exactly. And that really helped, man, as hard of news as that was to hear at the time, I am so grateful to have kind of had that puzzle placed on myself, because 4 years later of chipping away at this idea of creating the lowest stress law firm that I can have, we've been able to now create this thriving law firm that only needs about an hour of my time a week. Mm-hmm. And based on the lessons that I've learned, the colleagues such as Kim Adele that I've gotten to work with and learn from, I'm now helping other business owners as well have a similar type of life and business for themselves, because I think so many of us as just people right now, and because of our upbringings and families, we've learned to wear this busyness as a badge of honor. And it's not a very healthy way of being a person or a business owner these days. And so I'm super grateful to have people like Kim Adele with me on this mission to spread this good news that hard work needs to kind of get kicked off a pedestal if we want to have the lives that we want.
I love that. And thank you so much for sharing. And I'm just enthralled. I mean, if you can make it a stress-free law firm that only takes an hour a week, there's hope for all of us, isn't there? Because
absolutely,
they're the kind of roles that you look at and go, how do you deal with all that preparation, all of that conflict? You know you're going to be in conflict. You're going in to argue
right.
for your position versus anybody else. It's all the things as business owners that we would like to run away from.
Yes.
And yet you've managed to create it not only as an organization, but as an organization that actually runs with limited amount of your time. And that is so replicable for other organizations, because if you can do it there, you can do it anywhere.
Oh yeah, there's nothing special about me. Anybody can do this. And Kim Adele, you help people with this so much as well.
Bless you. But I think it is that part. It's about thinking differently, isn't it? We've created a culture where we're busy being busy, but how often are we actually busy doing the right thing? Or how often do we find ourselves being busy because we think that that's the badge of success. So, well, if I'm busy, I'm doing stuff. If I can't work out how to eat or sleep or sit down or think, then I'm doing everything I can for my business. And yet the reality is that's not really helping us, is it? That's not us working on the business. That's us working in the business. And I know that you are an expert at helping people to make the move from being stuck in it to working on it, to shaping the direction, the strategy, the long-term plan without feeling like the whole world revolves around that individual being there and making every decision. So what would you say has been your greatest lesson so far?
Oh, man, that is such a good question. I think the greatest lesson that I've learned is if you are willing to trust others, more often than not, you'll be right.
I love that. But it sounds so simple, doesn't it? But to trust others is such a huge leap of faith.
Yes, and we've all been burned before, so we all know the risk of trusting someone.
We do, but we also all know the benefit of when we've trusted somebody and it's gone well. And I guess it's having that. Would it be right to say, that it's having that faith that just because it went wrong before doesn't mean to say it's going to go wrong again. So to trust your gut and to make the best choice you can in the moment.
Yeah, and everyone, I know you probably see this all the time, Kim Adele, but everyone on the team works and operates better when they feel like they are being trusted.
Yeah.
And at the root of so many team problems, of business growth problems, are drama that's created inside the company because people know that others on the team aren't trusting them. Yeah.
That's so true. Because how often do we focus on what everybody else is doing instead of what we're doing? And you see people go, well, what are they doing over there? It's a little bit like, I remember in my corporate career, the amount of times I would go into organizations to help transform them. And everybody be so quick to point out where everybody else's building was on fire. I'm like, yours looks a little bit on fire too, if you don't mind me saying.
Right.
So while you're pointing me over here, you look a little warm. I would like to understand what's going on where you are. And if we put that focus inwardly on what are we doing? What's our team doing? What, are we open to feedback? Are we open to being wrong? Are we curious about alternate ways of doing things? Or are we just committed to it's our way or the byway? And we see that a lot, don't we? But I know that that's something that you're so skilled at helping business owners see beyond, to ask themselves those questions, to recognize those blind spots. So what would you say has been your biggest lesson so far?
There's so many lessons that go into this. Another just huge one for me is to steal a quote, and I forget who the author is, but it's this idea of focusing on the gain and not the gap. It's very easy as business owners and just as people to stay focused on that difference between where we're at now and where we want to be.
Yeah.
And when we fall into that natural line of thinking, it's really hard to be happy and grateful because we're never there yet, right? But as people, and especially as business owners, there is definitely accomplishments that you've made that have gotten you to where you are right now. And the more that you can start your day, start your meetings with that sense of gratitude and accomplishments, the better it is to just get yourself in that headspace of being able to think about things in the most effective way. Before we went live, Kim and Dell and I were talking about, the importance of mindset and looking into situations with different types of perspectives and trying to think about the obstacle or the issue that you're facing in a way that will inspire the best next step. And so much of that can be kind of shortcutted by starting from a place of gratitude and recognizing that gain of where you've come from. And so that's something that has gone from a lesson learned to a note to my team to now something that's very ingrained at the beginning of every single one of our meetings, where we kick every meeting off with a positive focus and a mood rating where there's an expectation, but not a rule, where if you're feeling good, just give yourself a 10 out of 10 for the day.
Yeah.
And it really, really makes a difference in our team meetings when people are saying, yeah, I'm at a 10 out of 10 and this great thing happened, in the last 24 hours.
I love that, because when we're grateful for things, we have more things to be grateful for.
Yes.
And one of the analogies I always use is, if you tried to climb Everest, and I own up, I've never tried to climb Everest, but when you do, that there are camps along the way, and they're there for very valid reasons. You need to be able to pause and reflect on how far you've come to give you the strength to keep going. And I think there are those moments, aren't there, with our teams where we go, tell us what we're grateful for. I remember, showing my age, back in the 90s, working for an organization, and every day we used to start with, are you playing from a 10? So you'd have to remember as to where you were playing from. And the second question would be, if you weren't a 10, what would have to happen to get you to be playing for a 10 today? And it was a really great way of shifting that mindset of looking at it and going, well, why am I only a 5? What's really gone wrong? Is it really that bad? And like you say, it wasn't a rule, but it really helped you start looking at, you knew every day you were going to have to come in with what's gone well, not what's gone badly. And therefore you found things that went well, genuinely, that had gone well, because what we focus on, we find, don't we? And I think that's the beauty of what you've done with your team. And tell us all, how many hours do you now spend working in your business?
So I now spend less than an hour a week doing client work. I'll also, I'm in a few meetings throughout the week, but most of my week is spent networking, being able to have great conversations like this, and then checking in on my leadership team and seeing, hey, is there anything that I can help with, that I can lead with, and just kind of trusting them to take over with the business. I just recently got back from a vacation, and yes, the vacation in itself was a win. It was the first time that I traveled without my laptop, especially without a laptop for 3 weeks. I didn't check any emails while I was gone. But the real win was coming back and have 0 emails in my inbox.
Amazing.
That for me was a really big thing, because I remember past vacations that I would go on, even if I was working more during that time off, there was always this this case of the Mondays that are just coming up, right? Of, oh man, when I get back into work, I know that I'm going to have to kind of work overtime just to catch up. And that wasn't by accident. It was very much by design. And my team had been thinking about what we could do to make that happen. But it was such a gift to me. And it allowed me to enjoy the vacation way more, knowing that I would come back to little to no work. And it wasn't lost on me. And I told my team this, that, it's such a gift that they were giving me during this time off. And it's a gift that I hope everyone on the team receives more and more, in terms of taking intentional time off, really unplugging from the business, and then being able to come back without a lot of catch-up work.
Oh, I love that, because like you say, it's that huge gift for them as well. And we're setting that example. I spent too many years that I am, in reflection, mortified about what I did, because I was so desperate to help. I was so desperate to make sure that people didn't feel like they were abandoned, that when I was on holiday, I would check emails, I would work late, I would respond to people.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that inadvertently I was setting an expectation in them that they did the same.
Yes.
Because I was very much, when you go on holiday, you've earned it, you deserve it. But you can't do as I say, not do as I do. You've got to walk the talk for your team, haven't you?
That's true. It's so true. And it just brings back that idea of that badge of honor of busyness is something that we really need to be thinking about, because we are setting expectations and setting an example to the rest of our team and how we're acting. And my wife and I are talking about this a lot, because she also has spent the past few years overachieving in her job to help as much as she can, to help get the company closer to what their vision is, to be really seen as a team player, especially since she's remote. And now that she has more of a team around her, she's realizing, oh, there are negative consequences to me showing up in this way that I really have to think about as we move forward.
Yeah. And it's hard when you get that. I mean, I realized, and it's only been the last few years since I had my little girl, and I've gone into organizations and like you, and consulted with them. But I've been very clear on my boundaries, which is I'm a mum. So measure me on my outputs, not on the hours that I'm sat in front of you, because I will make sure I deliver everything that you need me to deliver and some. Mm-hmm. But it won't be because I'm sat next to you for 14 hours a day pretending that I'm busy. It will be because I'm really focused in the moment. And I've been really lucky. I've had clients come back again and again and again, because you realize that actually, instead of measuring how many hours I'm sat with you, you measure how valuable the impact I've had on your organization is. And I think that's kind of what comes through so strongly with what you're doing in helping founders to say, you can find a different way. You can measure the success of your organization by how you steer it, but you don't actually have to run yourself into an early grave, putting in more hours than are humanely possible to prove that you're committed. And I think that's such a gift that you give to organizations.
Yeah, it's so important that I don't know if you can hear the siren cruising through, but I live in a pretty busy street in Chicago, and they always know how to time the ambulance runs, just on like a really good moment of a live show.
But that is life, isn't it?
Yeah, it's just a sign that that's worth listening to.
It is, and so poignant, because how many people push themselves, try so hard, work hard at being busy instead of work smart at the organization. And then we hear these terrible stories, don't we, where people were working towards their retirement and then they get there and they're not able to enjoy it because they've made themselves ill, or heaven forbid, even worse than that. And I think
100%. And it's very hard, if not impossible, to totally retire when your whole adult and working life you've had that busyness badge worn, because if you've lived your whole life up until now being valuable and a good person by working hard, what does it mean about you if you're no longer working?
Yeah.
I've seen so many of my family wrestle with that, go back out of retirement, back to work, because there's a real sense of laziness or whatever bad words you can think of for someone who's not working. And at the same time, again, this past trip, there was so much that that went into making it different than past vacations of mine. One of which is that I had been seeing a therapist for months before I went out. And so in addition to all of the work prep, all of that mindset work of just thinking ahead of time of things that could potentially derail the trip, that could make things harder. One thing that we talked about was I knew that I would be going on vacation with friends and family who were not as unplugged from work that I would be.
Yeah.
And I knew that it could be tempting if all of a sudden everybody hops on calls or their laptops for me to just join them and re-download the email app and see what I could do to help people and all of that stuff. And it takes strength and courage to keep the vacation going when those moments hit, and to resist the urge to go back into working on things. It can also be really hard just to totally get your mind off of work. And the more that you plug in, the more that your brain just kind of stays on the radar of business stuff.
Yeah. And you don't give yourself time for creativity, do you?
Right.
Because we're so busy being busy and doing that actually we don't allow ourselves those moments of pause. And yet they're usually where we find our greatest creativity, is that, that thought, those random thoughts that come out and you're like, that might really do it. That could be
the
next great idea. But while we're so busy being busy and directing our brain, we don't allow for that creativity. We don't allow for that opportunity to just play like we did when we were kids. We'd just play and we'd be creative, and it didn't have a purpose. But sometimes it came up with the best ideas. And it's, how do we bring that into our adult business life? How do we embrace creativity over busyness?
It's like those shower moments, right?
Yeah.
It's a hard thing to do. And I also think that there's a delicacy to that conversation, because I don't think that the point of going on vacation is to come back with a bunch of great ideas for your business.
No.
But it can definitely inevitably happen. And I know that it did for me. There were just certain aha moments, or, I'd listen to a podcast or watch a commercial, or something would happen in a book that I was reading, and it would just trigger an idea for something related to the business. We've got some new plans coming up in the next couple of months that are just a result from me starting to doze off on the plane and having some crazy idea.
Yeah. But I love that. It's not around advocating we should go on holiday to force creativity, because that won't ever work. But it's almost that place that when we unplug, when we allow ourselves those moments to just be, then that's when our subconscious brain really kicks in, because it's working all of the time. And psychologists call it positive procrastination. So there's a technique where, when you're stuck on a problem and you don't know the answer, and you're kind of there, and we sit there, don't we, in our busy little worlds going, well, I'm just going to sit here for the next 4 hours until I get an answer to this. And we get more and more stressed, and we get more and more frustrated and more anxious. And we're never going to get the answer, because we're so stuck. And the technique is to write it to yourself as a question. So whatever the problem is you're trying to solve, you write it as a question to yourself in a book. Physically write it down, close the book, put it to one side, and trust that your subconscious brain is solving the problem for you. And go and do something else, whatever it is, even if it's do some of the work, but go and do something not related to that problem. And then when you come back, and it might be in a couple of days, you read it out to yourself out loud as a question, and the answer comes to you, because your subconscious brain has been working on that problem for you while you've been busy doing something else. But you're so much more relaxed. You're so much less frustrated, because you've not sat there hitting a brick wall going, come on, the answer's in it. And I think that's kind of the beauty of what you've done with your vacation, is without making it about, I'm going to go off and generate ideas, you've inadvertently created a space for your brain to tell you all the things it's been thinking of.
Oh, I love that. I love that. And just transitioning to a related point here.
Yeah.
Our leadership team is always trying to get better and better at planning strong goals for our company. And we have a routine of quarterly planning. And what we used to do was say, okay, what's our big goal for the quarter in terms of the number that we want to hit or whatever it is? And then what are the challenges to making that happen? And then from there we say, okay, what can we do to minimize these challenges or address these challenges? And we would talk from there and come up with ideas. And then those would be our main projects for the quarter to get us to the goal. What we do now, and it is so much more effective, is we say, okay, what's our number? Then we say, what are the issues? What are the obstacles? What are the barriers to making that happen? Then we say, what are the payoffs to achieving these things? And we list down what the payoffs would be. And then we say, okay, what are strategies that we can come up with to achieve these payoffs? And so we're coming up with ideas to achieve the payoff versus avoid the barrier.
Oh, I love that. So turning it into that positive, isn't it? Because
yes,
I always think there's a cost of doing things. We know that. But there's a cost of not doing things. And that's often the question we don't ask ourselves is, what is the cost to not do something? And I think if we can get ourselves into that place where we understand that there is that playoff, there is that point where it's like, what if I don't do anything, it's going to cost me something just as much as it's going to cost me if I do something. So I love that you've managed to create a space for your teams where they focus on the upside of everything.
Yeah.
Because then it always strikes me in organizations that we set goals in the negative so often. The amount of organizations I work with where you go in and they go, we've got minimum standards. I'm like, really? So I get to the end of the day, I've worked my backside off, I've done everything you asked me to do, and I get to go home to my family and go, do you know, today I was absolutely minimum. How does that feel? Whereas if we took the exact same standard but called it a standard of excellence, but we just don't accept anything less than that, same day, same approach, but you get to go home and go, do you know, today I was excellent. Which one is going to allow you to go back and have a better day? And that's what I love about what you're doing, is you're getting people to focus on the positive point rather than focusing on, all I did was stop us having something bad happen.
Yeah.
What I did was allow us to have something good happen. And psychologically, that must have such an impact on your business and your team.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, a lot of people talk about the importance of coming up with your core values. And we've learned that core values aren't really something that we come up with, but more are things that we are discovering about our team and the company as we're moving forward. And one of our core values that we've recently discovered has always been there is ease. And we really want there to be a sense of ease for our clients when they work with us and have the entire experience feel very effortless. We want to have that kind of Apple effect where all of Apple's products, they're so simple, even though I'm sure the insides of the devices are super complicated. But we also want there to be a sense of ease across the team. And whatever we can do to make working together feel more effortless, we want to lean into.
I love that. What an amazing value set for your business, to create the same level of ease for your colleagues as you do for your clients. Because if we can get it right for our colleagues, they can get it right for the client. I love it. If you could go back and give your younger self any advice, what would it be?
I would love to shake my former self and say, buddy, there is this whole reality of being a business owner that you're not even considering. I had no idea of what it meant to be an entrepreneur or a business owner. I never thought that I would have run my own business. Even when I was in law school, the idea of running my own law firm wasn't something that I ever imagined for a second for myself. And I think part of it is because I'm not very entrepreneurial in the sense of I'm not a huge risk taker. I hear of a lot of like very large entrepreneurs, very successful entrepreneurs who they love the risk piece of it. They will spend their off time doing whatever risky things that you can do on a boat or in a car or whatever. That's not really my personality, but I'm very lucky that I kind of found a back door into this business owner world. And the business owners that I love working with the most are entrepreneurial, not because they just have this natural like risk tolerance that they love leading into, but because they really want to help people and make an impact. And one of the best ways to help people at scale is to create your own company and then listen to what your target audience is struggling with and then create solutions for them.
Oh, I love that. I was talking to somebody earlier today on just that thing, which is like, if we're not solving problems, we're not really running businesses. Because there's not a problem that we're there to solve. And I think it comes into two camps, doesn't it? I always say to people, you've got to know first if you're a want or a need. So if I want a pen, then any pen will do. Right. But if I want a Mont Blanc, it's because I want the experience. I want the feel of it. So if I'm there looking for a Mont Blanc, don't try and sell me the fact that I can write so many 100 words with it and it'll be
right.
smooth. Because it's a very different thing. But know first what it is that you're there to solve. It's either a want or a need, and then make sure that that's what you deliver. And I love that that's what not only you do in your own business, but what you now do in consulting with other businesses is help them to do just that in the most efficient, in the most effective way, to empower their leaders to actually focus on the business, not get stuck in the business. I could literally chat to you all day, but I'm very conscious that we've overrun and I've taken up so much of your time. So how would people get in touch with you, and who is it that you would like to serve?
Oh man. Well, there are two main things that my companies do. One is trademarks and brand protection. So if you're a business and you're not yet trademarked, that's a pretty big legal problem. We want to make sure that you legally own your brand. You can go to indielaw.com, which is INDIE law.com. Book a free call with my team and we can see how we can help you there in terms of protecting your brand, giving you peace of mind. And the other thing that we do to give you peace of mind is with your team potentially. So part of me getting to the point that I'm at now and where I'm helping others is finding and getting the most out of this amazing secret weapon of overseas virtual assistants. It is now possible in a way that it's never been possible before to get all of those very administrative entry-level tasks off of not only your plate, but really as much of your team's plate as possible. And these people are willing and able to do such tasks for $8 to $10 an hour, sometimes less, sometimes a little bit more, in a way that can be really helpful for your business, really appreciated by the rest of your team, and very much appreciated by this overseas team, because that is very much a living wage for them. And so our service, globalvettedvas.com, will match you with 5 highly vetted overseas vetted VAs so that you can start delegating and getting more of your free time back.
Amazing. And I have the privilege of being one of your clients in that business, and they are amazing at the impact that they have on the team, on the business, on me as the owner is just priceless. And they've become such immense team members. So I couldn't recommend them highly enough. And I'm super grateful that you were able to help me get mine. Joey, it's been an absolute joy. I will make sure all of the ways to contact you are in the show notes below. And I look forward to our next conversation. But thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and your insight. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks again for having me, Kim Adele.
Pleasure. Take care.
This podcast is a part of the C-Suite Radio Network. For more top business podcasts, visit c-suiteradio.com.